What's going on, YouTube? I'm your host, the Mad, the Dashing, Dash Jovis, and we're going to do some more tier slop today. So I covered hand traps already, so now we're going to talk about board breakers in this format. This format is generally not a good board breaker format. Malice just does so much stuff and draws cards, and like if you don't stop Malice on their turn, which basically takes Lancia or pairs of hand traps most of the time. But if you don't stop Malice on their turn, you're probably not going to beat them just by like super polying their board. So Forbidden Droplet is S. I'm on Droplet right now. I think it's actually really good. It's still not great into Malice, but it's really good into Ryzeal, and it has applications versus Malice, especially if you like pair it with hand traps. Like if you pair it with a Droll and you have some other interruptions to like minimize the size of their board, it could be really good. It can even work against the white binder sometimes if you can push through the Appaloosa and the allied code talker at Ignister. So I think it's a pretty strong board breaker, and I'm also going to put Talents there, mostly because the rip from the hand is so strong right now. So it's a good going first card too. Again, both of these, good going first, good going second, good in multiple matchups. Stealing Ryzeal monsters, really strong, especially if you reduce the Ryzeal board. I'm also going to say Thrust is S tier. You only play this in very specific decks, but being able to search out your power spells is really strong. It's a strong going second tool. You see this in like board breaker decks a lot of the time, and it even just searching Talents is pretty good, but also searching stuff like Lightning Storm or Harpy's Feather Duster, or Heavy Storm is also here with Harpy's Feather Duster. Can be really good depending on the matchup. Harpy's Feather Duster and Lightning Storm and Heavy Storm, by virtue of it, pretty good right now. You know, you can force the Malice player to blow their GWC early, and if they've set MTP, you can really punish them for that. And then against Ryzeal, getting rid of their cross and their back row makes it a lot easier to deal with the board. Like these have cooked me with my Ryzeal deck a few times. However, they're not the most versatile things ever. Heavy Storm obviously has the problem of blowing up your own back row if you draw it in a grind game. Lightning Storm obviously has the problem that it doesn't work if you have things on the board, so it's not a great top deck in a grind game. I'm going to say Raigeki and Dark Hole are cards that you should usually not be running. Dark Hole, Raigeki, basically just copies of the same card. Dark Hole is better in some decks, Raigeki is better in some decks. Sometimes you want to blow up your own monsters or remove stuff from the field for a couple of reasons, like popping the baby, or there's a few reasons you might want to clear your own field. But generally Raigeki better top deck in a grind game. But usually if you see some of these, you'll see some number of both of them. They pair pretty well with Droplet, right? You can get rid of negates or protection and then blow up their board. But the Malice board puts up a spell negate, and that just blows out one of these at least. It also does a lot of stuff out of the graveyard, so just blowing up their board, even if it does go through, not necessarily good enough. I think Lava Golem's a little bit better than that. I've been cooked by Lava Golem a couple of times recently. Like, it's pretty good against Ryzeal. It's not so good against Malice, but again, most of the time, both those decks are ending on 2 monsters. Maybe 3, but the third monster is usually not that relevant. And then, like, every now and again, you're playing Heraldic Ryzeal and you're ending on 4 monsters, but then 2 Lava Golems. Like, Lava Golem uses up your normal summon, but it's not a normal summon, it's a special summon, so you can summon 2 Lava Golems to your opponent field if they have 4 monsters. I'm going to say Sphere Mode is a little bit weaker than Lava Golem right now, just because a lot of the boards don't end on 3 monsters. Like Ryzeal, a lot of the time is either ending on Detonator, Duo, Drive, or like sometimes it'll end on 3 monsters, but like a lot of the time it's just Detonator, Duo, Drive, and then the back row and the cross. So like that's the matchup that you want a Lava Golem in, and your Sphere Mode is actually actively worse than that. I'm going to say Dark Ruler no more is just don't run it in this meta. Like, yeah, it deals with Allied Code Talker, Ignister, and Appaloosa against Malice, and it deals with the Detonator pops, and, you know, maybe it gets rid of their protection or whatever, right? Like, maybe it deals with the Baguska. But, like, so much of the power of these boards is that they have layered end boards with spell and trap removal. So, like, you negate their board, but then they just Forbidden Droplet their Detonator into the graveyard and then revive it with plug-in, right? Like, it doesn't really work that well, I think. And then against Malice, yeah, you've negated their 3 negates, but they have all the follow-up out of their graveyard, so they're still going to have a couple of banishes from the field, and they're still going to banish a bunch of stuff out of the graveyard. They've still already drawn 3 to 5 cards, maybe more if they're running Heat Soul. I've run into a couple people running Heat Soul, and yeah, just not very good against Malice, and only so effective against Ryzeal. I mean, pairs pretty well with Droll, the same way Droplet does against Ryzeal, but it's not good going first, whereas like Droplet, these S tier ones are basically good going first and second. Like Thrust, only good going first if you're setting a floodgate with it, basically, but setting a lingering floodgate with it could be really effective, so, you know. Enemy Controller, I'm going to put in B. I think Enemy Controller does pair pretty well with certain hand traps, and it pairs pretty well with certain board breakers. It is good going first and second. It, you know, but I mean, Ryzeal puts up targeting protection, Malice puts up a spell and trap negate. Like, it pairs pretty well with Widow Anchor and Sky Striker engines, because then you can steal their thing with Widow Anchor, then tribute their thing to steal another thing. Like, that's pretty good. That's pretty strong. But yeah, I think in general you probably want to play this card. I was playing it a little bit last format when I was just trying stuff, throwing stuff at the wall, and it was okay. But now that everybody's on Star Leash, Photon Blast Dragon, and Ryzeal, it's a lot less effective. And you know, there are reasons to run Sky Striker packages. Maybe Sky Striker packages are even an A, because of the Tenpai deck playing the Sky Striker cards and doing pretty well with them. That engine loses really hard to Droll, though, and there is a lot of Droll in the metagame, so that's a little bit of a problem. And plus, the hand trap Tenpai list is also really strong, so maybe you just want to go for the list that might have a better chance against Malice. Ultimate Slayer, I'm going to put it in D. Like, yeah, they can't stop you from negating them with Ultimate Slay in Malice, and it deals with the Appaloosa and the Allied Code Talker at Ignister, sure. But again, that's not the problem with the Malice board. That's like 2 pieces of the Malice board out of all the stuff they can do out of the graveyard, right? So, like, Super Poly, same basic thing. Yeah, it takes down the Malice board, but then they just summon White Binder, and that summons 2 things out of the graveyard, and those 2 things give you 2 more banishes, and, you know, like, and then they've drawn so many cards that they've drawn their max C, and it doesn't even fucking matter, right? Like, you know. I haven't seen Metaltronus, but I think Metaltronus could be good right now. I think the targets are probably White Binder and Ryzeal Detonator. And then you can also do stuff like you can run Underworld Goddess of the Closed World and negate the Detonator while having full Fiendsmith combo. It's a lot weaker than it should be because it can be ashed, though. So, like, Malice is probably going to draw into the Ash Blossom. Ryzeal will sometimes draw cards on its turn and draw into the Ash Blossom, and then your board breaker just loses to Ash. Book of Eclipse, really good against Ryzeal, really bad against Malice, loses to Ash. Good going first against Malice, though, so it's not a completely dead card in the matchup. And you can use it to dodge their targeted negation in your Ryzeal deck, for example. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I think in general, Book of Eclipse, not too hot right now, but It is kind of cool. Like, it is cute. It's good against Ryzeal. If you're trying to build a deck where you have, like, 5 answers to Ryzeal, 5 answers to Malice, and then a couple of things that are generically good against everything, you might run this card, right? I don't think you want to run Book of Lunar Eclipse or Book of Moon, though. Just too low impact even against Ryzeal, and do nothing against Malice going second. Dino Wrestler Pankratops and Kashtira Fenrir are pretty good. Maybe they're Bs. Maybe Fenrir's an A and Pankratops is a B. Pankratops makes sense to run in dinosaur decks, but the main dinosaur deck is Jirac, and it doesn't play Pankratops. But still, Pankratops is a pretty good interruption, and it has applications. I'm going to put it in B. It's just like, if you're running Petite Pteranodon or Double Evolution Pill or whatever, then you're probably running a Pankratops or two. But it isn't a great board breaker by its own merits. It just is good in Dino engines. And then it's a similar thing for Kashtira Fenrir. It's a slightly better board breaker, uses the battle phase. It's better than Pankratops for going first. It also is part of the Kashtira engine, and that's why I'm including it up here with Widow Anchor, is that Kashtira engines with Unicorn and Fenrir and Birth actually pretty solid right now. Like, ripping White Binder out of your opponent's extra deck can be good. Ripping Exiton Knight out of your opponent's extra deck can be good. So you'll run this card alongside Unicorn a lot. But you're not going to see a lot of running just Fenrir as a board breaker by itself. It's more like in Kashtira engines. I'm going to say Alpha is trash. You know, I've gotten Alpha'd a couple of times. It's not the worst board breaker in the world, but, like, I don't know. You should probably just be running Fenrir, and then Fenrir is not even that much better as by itself, right? Kaijus, you know, you see Gameciel in the water deck a lot of the time. Vanquish Soul has a reason to run either Doggeron or Radiant, depending on whether they need Darks or Fires more, or maybe Commungus if they need an Earth more. That's basically the only place you'll see these most of the time, other than, like, 8-axis going second decks will sometimes run multiple Kaijus too. But, like, it's not very good. But, I mean, the one Gameciel in water, actually pretty solid. Change of Heart. Targets, easy to negate. I mean, it's Change of Heart, Mind Control, all those cards can be good, but I think in general just don't. Forbidden Chalice, also a don't. Targets, it does have the option of being activated in the damage step or being used to win a battle. That's kind of cute. Like, it is cool, but in general, like, you should just always be running Forbidden Droplet over this card. You should always be running Imperm over this card. And there's not really room in the deck to be running this most of the time. Hamp. You don't see this in most Sky Striker engines, so I'm also going to say Hamp. Not very good. Yeah, I mean, if you're playing a Sky Striker deck, having a searchable Kaiju is kind of cool. But there's a reason people aren't playing this, right? Like, Kaiju's not that effective in this meta right now. There's not really big towers monsters that you need a Kaiju for anyways. And there are answers to most of the towers type monsters that aren't Kaijus in a lot of situations. So yeah, I don't think you need to run Hamp. I think if you're running a Sky Striker engine, you're running like Widow Anchor and Afterburners, and like you're trying to destroy their spells and traps, negate their stuff, and maybe banish from the graveyard, plus engage and Hornet Drones and etc. in your Sky Striker engine. You're not trying to search out Hamp. And then Evenly Matched, I'm going to put it in B, because this card is actually really good right now, but if they land CAU, it doesn't do anything. Like, I've had games where I've land CA'd my opponent, and they've gone Thrust for Evenly Matched, and then it's like, no, you can't banish anything. Like, your Evenly Matched is dead. So, like, you're losing to the land CA minigame with your Board Breaker, plus the main Board Breaker decks in the format are like Tenpai and Gem Knight, which are going second Board Breaker decks that are trying to OTK. So, like, you can't give up your battle phase in those decks. Like, you can, but it's not a good idea. But, you know, It does do a really good job of minimizing the Ryzeal board and permanently getting rid of a bunch of their stuff. So that's pretty good. And if you can force it through the allied Code Talker at Ignister, maybe beta negate and then fire it off, then it does a pretty good job of getting rid of your opponent's resources. Like they can chain GWC and then summon White Binder, and then have White Binder be the only thing on the field, and then they have the White Binder graveyard recursion. But it can be part of a plan to tear down Malice's board. But again, tearing down Malice's board isn't actually the problem against Malice. The problem is they're going to draw 4 cards and draw into Max C. They're going to Allure of Darkness and Chessy Cat and White Binder and maybe even Decode Talker Heat Soul. So maybe it's even a C, you know? Because you're losing a Lancia, you're losing a Malice. It's good against Ryzeal, but it still leaves them with Detonator, you know. Probably similar in quality to Raigeki and Dark Hole, but board breaker decks will sometimes play Raigeki and Dark Hole over Evenly Matched, even though Evenly Matched is a better card, just because they need the battle phase, right? Like those going second board breaker decks all need the battle phase. And then I don't have the Runic cards on here. I guess I should probably have put the Runic cards on here. But Runic cards also an A with Widow Anchor. Like if you're running a Runic engine, that can be really strong. Gives you a win condition. You can banish key pieces of your opponent's deck and they can just suffer. I think the biggest problem with the Runic engine right now is that with all the Malice floating around, you really don't want to banish cards from your opponent's deck, because you're going to banish their White Rabbit or their Dormouse and just give them extra free material, right? But they are still pretty good cards, you know. Freezing Curses is pretty good. Flashing Fires, really good. Being able to destroy back row in Engine and then draw some cards, really good. Yeah. So that's my tier list for the board breakers in the September 2025 format. I think this list pretty much sums it up. Like you see a fair amount of Droplet, and I think Droplet is pretty good. You see a lot of Talents and a little bit of Thrust. They're all right. And then like back row sweepers are effective in this meta as part of your, like they're kind of like eating your vegetables in a board breaker deck, right? You want to deal with the back row too and have answers to the back row. And then like Sky Striker and Kashtira engines occasionally see play, can be solid. And then stuff like Lava Golem and Book of Eclipse and Kaijus, they have a place, but they're not particularly common or incredibly strong, right? Alright, well, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good life. Bye!